Did you heard the new Bloodlet single, right? Have you heard that?
No, I haven't heard it yet. I was totally going to listen to it after talking to you yesterday, and I completely forgot.
It was pretty cool, but the singer sounds totally different. I don't know if it's the same guy or not.
According to Randy, it's the same. It's the classic lineup, like
okay,
like the one that Aaron did the artwork for that record. I think it's that lineup.
That was my favorite version of the band. I like when they had two guitar players. I know we've gone back and forth about that, but but the singer sounds totally different, man. He's like, you know how his vocals always had this kind of like forced sort of sound to it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would describe it too.
Yeah, and now the guy, if it's the same guy, his voice sounds completely different. I don't know.
I think he blew his voice out before the Seraphim Fall. Something happened to his vocal cords that gave him like that sound.
Huh.
I think it's been a while since I've thought about it, but I think that's what happened. Maybe he got his something fixed. I don't know.
He's got his vocal cords fixed, and now he sounds different.
He sounds like a girl now.
Yeah. No, but dude,
anyhow.
Bloodlet's great, man. They're and Bloodlet and Integrity and Dead Guy were, in my opinion, my favorite Victory Records bands.
I love that Those Who Fear Tomorrow record. That's like such a classic.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't really know much after that.
I got to tell you, man, the later Integrity, the Relapse era of the band, it's like different guys. Like it's not like the the Melnick brothers anymore. But there's always been different guys in and out of the band over the years. Chris Smith from Keel Hall was in Integrity for a while.
Yeah.
But the lineup he has now is like guys from Baltimore.
Right, you were saying. And
it's fucking good, man. It's like, it's still, Dwid's still the direction. You know what I mean? Like he still has like the vibe and the lyrics and the just the whole overall concept behind the band. And it just has this. I really like the new Integrity stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, man. I remember seeing them in it was like '93, tuning in New Haven.
Yeah. And
there was just this air of violence. There was some Cleveland, Connecticut beef or something like that. It was just the vibe in the room was intense. I remember they came out and the wood screamed Nisha, and then it was like a fucking prison riot within a second. It was just the most insanely violent show I've ever been to. Still to this day, I think. Yeah, it was awesome.
Another band that from upstate New York that's similar to that was All Out War, as far as the threat of violence at their live shows.
I think I remember them.
You ever check them out?
Yeah, I remember the name, but I don't remember much about the music at all.
Yeah, I'm not a big hardcore fan, but I like All Out War. I like Integrity, and I like a Marauder a lot too.
Oh, Marauder. Yeah, Mike from Candiria, the bass player for Candiria, was in Marauder for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what era of the band was before he was in Candiria, so.
There have been a lot of guys in that band, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things.
But the classic lineup though is with Saab on guitar. That's he's kind of the heart and soul of the band, in my opinion. But he passed away a number of years ago.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. It was like this. There was a passed away. I don't know. It's got to be maybe 10 years ago at this point. Yeah, maybe more than 10 years ago.
Were they another Victory band?
I think they were on Century Media.
Oh Jesus! Yeah, Century Media was signing underground bands for a while.
Yeah, it was they were part of that era when Century Media was I will actually let me fact check that because I don't want to mislead anybody. But Marauder was definitely the most metal out of all those bands coming out of New York. I mean, even though New York always had a very metal, hardcore sound. Even going back to Cro-Mags and Agnostic Front and all that stuff. But
sure, yeah.
Let's see, Master Killer, Century Media. Yeah, they have 3 records on Century Media. Master Killer, Five Deadly Venoms, and Brutality. the record that came out in 2002, man, that was on that Century Media as well.
It's crazy to think I Hate God on Century Media.
That
what a weird pairing.
That was insane, man. But hey, so was Buzz Oven was on Roadrunner. So yeah, that was another weird.
Yeah, they were on. Roadrunner's not even a label anymore, is it?
We had this big discussion about whether or not Roadrunner exists yesterday at band practice. I was like, because they were they put out a lot of great records, man. Fucking Deicide, like Sepultura, like all those bands. Fear Factory.
That Buzz Oven,
that one Buzz Oven record.
It's great. I think it's their only good record.
It's my favorite for sure, man. Like. It just sounds so evil,
They were great live around that time too.
Those first few songs off of that record, in my mind, have always been like they remind me of the the soundtrack for like robbing a 7-Eleven. You know what I mean? Like you roll up in a Nova or something like that, like a late 70s.
Yeah,
Nova.
you're like.
Into the parking lot of the 7-Eleven. And you're like, and your partners, and like one guy's like in the back with a shotgun, and you guys like start huffing some paint fumes. And then you're listening to that fucking Buzz Oven record as you drive over, and you're sitting in the parking lot. And they're just like, let's fucking go, man. And they just fucking bust in. Give me the fucking money. And then one guy like, and you leave. And then you're in the car with like maybe like $200 in cash, and fucking you buy drugs and just like do drugs in a parking lot somewhere.
Exactly. That is fucking perfect. It's so funny, dude. I saw Buzz Oven play like a hardcore fest in Connecticut with bands like Split Lip and Endpoint.
Oh yeah.
And the crowd just did not know what the fuck to think of them. It was incredible.
Yeah, the 90s hardcore. Like when I was a kid, I liked hardcore. You know what I mean? It's like, like Black Flag transcends the being hardcore, but like, Black Flag, Circle Jerks, Suicidal, Cro-Mags. Through the 90s, man, I just wasn't feeling it. Like I wasn't feeling that whole like that trip of like Endpoint and like Mouthpiece and all these bands. And I just wanted something more evil and intense, and that's where bands like Buzz Oven come in, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I liked some of that stuff in high school, but I always gravitated towards stuff like Neurosis, Buzz Oven, Dead Guy, Today's the Day. That was really more my thing. The hardcore scene too it was a different vibe from what we were doing. It was like the real like tough guy element that to it that I just never liked. And I mean, bands like Endpoint were more on the emo side of things.
Right. But that's something I just could never get behind, man. I can never identify with like the posse bands, really.
Yeah, and it's funny, like around that time, Victory was signing like a lot of interesting bands. Like they wanted to sign Unstained, and they had Dead Guy, and then they just started like putting out this just really, bad shit.
Yeah, Victory Record has there's like an interesting trajectory with that record label because they signed a lot of stuff that I don't like, like Snapcase and stuff like that, which I just don't like that kind of music, really.
I have to admit to liking them as a sophomore in high school.
Yeah, I mean, when you're young, I'm quite a bit older than you, bro. So it's like, but
That's true.
But when I like Snapcase, not my thing. Strife, not my thing. But then they did stuff like Integrity, Bloodlet, Dead Guy. That's definitely my thing for stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
At that stage of my life,
Then they started putting out bands with like spiky hair and like pop, like basically like pop music.
Well,
it was very weird. It was like that Victory has like artists on there that sold like 1 million records. So I'm not sure who or how many, but like it definitely blew up.
I think as time went by and like it got harder and harder to sell records, they needed to go where they could actually support themselves financially, and I think that's why these decisions were made over the years. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe back in the 90s. Also, once again, man, remember like there was like a pretty healthy independent distribution scene in the 90s. You know, you had Mortem, you had Very Distro, Lumberjack. You had all these companies that were like making. Man. They were like legitimate places to work. Like Mortem, I think their employees had like health insurance and stuff like that. You know. And and that's because people bought records at record stores. There were people who had like distros that bought from these distributors, and it was like an economy that happened in like a sort of microcosmic level that just went away once everything went digital and online.
Yeah, I mean, things have changed so much. It's a completely different landscape than it was in the 90s, and I think the movie business is going to go that way too. I mean,
yeah.
We're about to talk about the last decade of horror movies, and like, look how much that's changed with video on demand. Like these movies that probably would have never gotten made or released in a theater, they would have just been dumped to like a video store. Now you can just pop it up on your TV. There it is.
Do you? I think that sort of vibe actually has helped films quite a bit, really.
Yeah, sure, because you hear a lot of people talk about, like, Disney, it's all blockbusters now, and there's not a lot of room for the small movies, and that's where, a video on demand platform kind of comes in. You can see, like, a $10 million movie, $5 million, $1 million, something that you might not get a chance to see. Like you said, there it is. It's on your TV now.
Probably one of the, and I think we're probably going to talk about, like, some of this guy's films, but I think that an emerging filmmaker from this whole like sort of scene is Joe Bagos. I've been able to track his career from his first movie. And
Mindsight.
Yeah,
Almost Human. I mean,
yeah, and it was obviously a very low budget film, but I had access to it because of this whole video on demand world. Mm-hmm. And now he's poised to release VFW, which is a very a way more high profile sort of release, which is coming out soon, actually this year.
I saw it at Beyond Fest a couple months ago.
Yeah,
it's great. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I look forward to it, man. I totally look forward to it. But so anyway,
Yeah, with each. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
So yeah. Oh no, I was just gonna say with each film you can see him getting better and better at what he does. I really look forward to seeing what he's going to do next.
Yeah, and you're friends with that guy, aren't you? You know that guy?
Yeah, we met on Twitter.
On Twitter?
So some good things came from out of Twitter. I just started following because I liked his movie, and he followed me back. He's like, "Hey, dude, I was a Vices fan." I was like, "Well, cool. I like your movie."
Awesome.
And let's get a drink sometime, and we did.
That's cool,
good
man.
Dudes. Him and his production partner Josh, they're great guys.
Yeah, they're friends with the guy Danny Trudell, who runs Holy Mountain, who is he does our online merchandise and merch printing and stuff like that. And Holy Mountain's like really sick. I mean, it's not just music actually. He does like a lot of horror stuff and Godzilla, like he has a lot of different interests, and it's beyond just like a rock and roll like merch company. It's like very much like this kind of curated sort of vibe, and you'll actually see that some Holy Mountain shirts pop up in Joe Bagos's films.
Interesting. Holy Mountain, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, holymountainprinting.com.
Okay, I also work for a merch company. We do like SoundCloud rappers, like face tattoos, stuff like that.
Right on, man. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I know you love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you, man. A lot formerly of Dialect has actually turned me on to quite a bit of newer like hip hop music. That's pretty cool. That
really, yeah,
yeah. And
he's into some really different shit. I know that.
Yeah, I mean, hanging out with that guy is a trip, man. He's like one of the funniest dudes I think I've ever met. Oh
man, yeah, I toured with that guy several times. He's fucking hilarious.
And Dialects was, in my opinion, a very groundbreaking band, really, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like they've never gotten the respect that they deserve, or at least the recognition anyway. Like, bands love Dialect. They've toured with everybody, but it just seems like it never really crossed over to like this bigger success that I felt was really owed to them. Like, they're great. No one sounds like them. But like, it just, I don't know. Like, hip hop people are like, that's too noisy. It's just too abstract. I think some like more rock and roll audience is like, oh, it's too hip hop.
Yeah, that sucks, man.
It does suck. You think they would have found like an audience like that's similar to like, Portishead or something like that. Some people who can accept like something a little outside of the norm,
Like, ironically though, it's like, you talk about some of the early criticisms of like, oh, it's too noisy for like hip hop crowds. But there's like, particularly there's a song by this guy named Travis Scott. It's a song called Goosebumps. And if you listen to that song, it sounds like a fucking Dialect song, like the production and the like the beats and the vibe, and just with like a different type of like, kind of more like that mumbly like rap kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, and that guy's like the biggest thing in the world right now too.
Oh yeah, I don't know that, man. I have no knowledge of how big anyone is in that world. I just know that there's certain shit that I think is cool,
Yeah, I think he like was married to a Kardashian or dated one or something. Like, he's like a big star, I guess.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. It's like that was something that Alap actually put on he sent me a bunch of MP3s and like this gigantic, like a gig of fucking music to listen to, and Travis Scott was on there as something I should listen to, and what's kind of cool is like if you approach it with a totally objective point of view, a lot of that stuff to me reminds me of like Godflesh or like Yesu. Because like a lot of the beats, a lot of the tempos are slower, and with like urban type of vocals over the top of it,
Right. That makes sense too. I mean, Godflesh was heavily influenced, for Justin Broderick in general was like heavily influenced by hip hop. If you listen to like Godflesh's album Pure, there's an Eric B and Rakim beat on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe some of the artists themselves are not necessarily influenced by Justin Broderick, but maybe the producers are on these like more modern like hip hop things.
Yeah, I wonder. Like, you see a lot of hip hop dudes wearing like metal band shirts now and shit like that. So.
Yeah, that's a trend. That's a trend.
Is it?
Yeah, that's like back. You remember like back in like 2001, 1999, you'd see like. In Williamsburg, you'd see these like women with like Iron Maiden T-shirts on, but they don't have any idea who Iron Maiden was.
Yeah, well, you see that a lot now with like the Joy Division shirt. Like, it's just a symbol. Like, a lot of people wearing that shirt probably have no idea what Joy Division was.
That's sad. Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. All right, so one of the reasons, aside from us just two old friends just getting together for a Sunday chat, one of the reasons why we got together is both Jeff and I are huge fans of the horror genre, and
absolutely,
we're now in 2020, and we wrapped up a decade of films, and we wanted to do like a very abbreviated retrospective of the last 10 years in horror films, and maybe we're going to pick out like what we think are our top 10 favorites of the last 10 years, as well as some honorable mentions. So yeah, I'm really interested.
How many honorable mentions?
Oh, dude, I got.
Sorry, Mike.
I got to say, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I like maybe like 11 or something like that, but
I narrowed mine down to 6.
You can add 4 more if you want, man. It's cool. I mean, there's so many. I feel like this period between 2010 and 2019 were probably, that was an awesome time, and a lot of it had to do with what you were talking about, is the rise of the VOD, in that market. We didn't just like rely on like major studios to release movies that were good and conceptually, satisfying.
Absolutely. I mean, narrowing this down was hard. Like when we initially talked about it, I got up to like 35 movies.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, any of them are worthy of a top 10 spot. I mean, there's so much good stuff out there, especially this decade. I think we're in a new golden era of horror. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah. What criteria did you use to separate the top 10?
Yeah, I rewatched a bunch of these in the last couple of weeks, and I just wanted to keep it to like films that were just unique and just really stuck with me. Like I really had a hard time shaking it after I saw it.
Yeah.
More than like, oh, that was fun. These films really like stayed with me, and they're ones I find myself talking about a lot. And I was pretty sure what my top 5 was going to be, but it was like 10 to 6, and the honorable mentions are a little bit more difficult. I kind of started with, maybe like I'll just have every genre represented or every year, but then I thought, you're just eliminating all this stuff. So I just went with what really stuck with me.
Yeah, it's hard, man. That was pretty much that was similar to my criteria. My criteria was if I'd rewatched it multiple times, and if it was something that I kept thinking about, that sparked like a new sort of train of thought for me about the different types of concepts that were presented in the film. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So that was kind of like my criteria. So I guess like with that in mind, the runner-ups are more of like maybe I thought were awesome and fun, but didn't really have the same impact as the top 10 on me. And that's not to say they weren't great movies. They just impacted me differently.
Right. Yeah. So similar.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to start with your honorable mentions, or
let's start with 10. And then we'll do a little bit more of a quicker rundown. Just we don't have to go in depth about the sort of runner-ups. You know what I mean?
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to go first?
All right, cool. So coming in at number 10 is Bone Tomahawk, and that's 2015 by S. Craig Zahler. And more recently, he's an author and filmmaker that I've really started to follow. I mean, he did Brawl in Cell Block 99, Dragged Across Concrete.
Also great.
And, those movies had like, Kurt Russell, David Arquette, Vince Vaughn was in it. Dragged Across Concrete has the always controversial, what the fuck's
Mel
his name?
Gibson,
Mel
right?
Gibson. The always controversial Mel Gibson's in that. And also, as a result of my enjoyment of those movies, I started reading his fiction, and it's really cool.
Oh,
yeah.
I can imagine. I mean, I'm glad you brought up Bone Tomahawk. That was on my list for the longest time, and it's not written down anywhere here now.
Really?
I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bone Tomahawk, man, like there's something really poetic about his dialogue and the way the characters speak. The world feels really lived in and authentic, and I mean. That ending will be talked about forever. It's probably one of the most brutal scenes ever in a movie.
Yeah, totally. And I think that we could both agree that Zahler doesn't shy away from brutality. No,
not at all. I mean, there's at least one scene in every one of his movies that's like, oh man, that's going to be hard to shake.
Yeah. He's also a controversial guy too. Like a lot of people like don't like him because they think he's like some right wing sort of guy.
Yeah, that is the perception, isn't it? Like, and I can see how you could see like that in his movies. He has sort of this nihilistic worldview. I'm not really sure what his politics are, but I guess casting Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson at this point, some people see that as a political statement. I try not to think about that and just enjoy the movie.
Vince Vaughn has some controversy around him too. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a right wing guy, and actually just recently, I think it was he was shown chatting with the president at a college football game, and I guess Twitter went a little crazy. But it really shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Yeah, Vince Vaughn has been openly right wing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a few righties in Hollywood, not many.
I can imagine being in L.A. and being a Republican or a right wing sort of guy can be very unpopular.
Yeah, they exist. I mean, they must, especially outside of the. You reach a certain tax bracket. I'm sure you start to think more conservatively. That'd be my guess. I'm never going to reach that tax bracket, so.
Yeah, me neither, man.
But there's always hope.
The fucked up thing, though, is like, I don't know, man. Like, you and I have talked ad nauseum about this, how some shit isn't political, especially the arts, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And you can,
right.
if you're looking, you can find whatever you're looking for if you look hard enough, I guess. And like, I'm going to bring up like how certain people get a pass and certain people don't, and
sure.
The fucking bad brains, dude. It's like, so many of these like people fail or deny the overt like homophobic, rhetoric of these guys sometimes, you know what I mean? And it's just like,
that's true.
Yeah, it's fucked up. It's true. Like no one. I mean, I love the Bad Brains. I'm not gonna. I don't take it. I mean, they're a fucking groundbreaking band, but like most people, they're complicated. They have fucking assets, different aspects to who they are, and different nuances to who they are as people. And if you like someone's art, you don't necessarily have to agree with their politics. I mean, sometimes it's great when it aligns with your agenda, but I don't consider that to be a requirement for what I appreciate artistically.
Yeah, I can separate the art from the artist as long as the art that they're making isn't something I explicitly, disagree with. Like, I can listen to a band made out of Christians, but I can't listen to like a Christian rock band. I disagree with the message that they're saying. I'm a big Roman Polanski fan. He's one of the best directors ever. When talking about horror films, he's made a couple of great ones, but he's kind of a repulsive human being.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I appreciate his work too.
Right. Yeah. Moving on to my 10. Not a controversial movie at all. It is The Invitation from 2015. Karen Kusama was the director. I don't know if a lot of people saw this one. Did you see this?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
This one kind of took me by surprise. I didn't really know much about it. I just saw it was on Netflix. And my friend who had seen it said, "Hey, is that what you think it is? It goes places you don't think it's going to go." So I went in totally blind, and I absolutely loved it. I love these kind of smaller, contained horror films. This mostly takes place in a house over one night. It's a dinner party, and not to get too spoilery, the host has ulterior motives. And, I'm a big fan of anything to do with cults or occults, things like that. And, this movie, like I said, came out of nowhere, and I just really enjoyed it. I think it's really well acted, tightly directed. It doesn't run on too long. It's paced really well, and I think it's a movie horror fans should check out.
Yeah, I kind of stumbled upon that because I think it was on Netflix when I saw it. And
yeah, that's when I first saw it.
And it was one of these things where I was like, it was like a weeknight or something, and I was like, man, I want to watch a movie, and it just popped up in my feed, and I was like, yeah, this looks interesting, and I really enjoyed it, and it had a very claustrophobic vibe to it because it does take place just almost in real time, like in a one particular house, and then the ending really took me by surprise, and that's all I'll say about the ending.
Right, it keeps kind of pushing and pulling, like you don't really know if anything's happening or not. And there's a few instances like, oh, something's going on, and they're like, oh no, it's not. And there's a definitive answer to that.
Yeah.
In the end, and it's great. That's another thing I always look for in a horror movie: just a great ending. Not necessarily a twist or anything like that, but just again, like something that just hammers you right in the head, and you're like, oh, I'm not going to forget that for a while.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about endings because even though I love Stephen King, I feel like he's endings sometimes are not the strong points of his storytelling. You know?
I completely agree. I was talking to someone about In the Tall Grass. I don't know if that's on your list, but it's definitely not on mine. And I called it classic. It's classic Stephen King, where it starts off great and intriguing, and just gets really fucking stupid by the end.
Yeah. There's a couple of exceptions. Like I know that HBO is making they're in the middle of of the series version of this, but The Outsider, the novel, had a pretty good ending.
We just started watching it.
Yeah, great.
Oh, okay,
excellent. Good. The ending was good. Like that book, I remember. I read most of the things that come out. He puts out so many books, but like I read a lot of his new stuff when it comes out. I'll pick it up and read it. And that book, I think I read it in like 3 days or something. It was just from the get-go.
Oh, wow.
It starts off, there's all these interviews and you're just like drawn into this whole narrative. And I like plowed through it in like 3 days. And once again, the ending was good. It was one of the, I hate to say exceptions, but it was one of the times when he actually delivers on a good ending.
That's good to know. Aaron Harris is actually the one who convinced me to watch that. He's like, you got to watch it. I was like, yeah, it's Stephen King. It's going to end stupid. So, but the first couple episodes are really good. I totally, and I'm hooked. I'll be watching to the end.
It almost has like a True Detective kind of vibe to it,
That's exactly what we said. Like, this could be True Detective season 4.
Yeah. Man, that's fucking True Detective, man. That first, you just can never get past that first season, man. That first season was so good.
Man, it was really good, man. Like, I know, like, that guy gets criticized from, stealing from writers like Thomas Ligotti. I don't know if you're a Ligotti fan, but
I think conceptually he steals from Ligotti, but I don't think the tone of his writing is anything like Ligotti.
No, not at all. Not at all. But yeah, I enjoyed all 3 seasons of True Detective for different reasons. I mean, people love to shit on season 2, but it had some strong elements.
I agree with you on that. I liked all 3. I think by far the first is my favorite. The third one I thought was awesome, and the first one was good. Yeah. Didn't love it, but it was good. I definitely liked it.
Yeah, it started off stronger, and then it kind of got a little weak by the end. But yeah, it's not bad. It just that's a tough act to follow.
Like Nick
Fukunaga.
Pitzel. Well, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say Cary Fukunaga directing every episode of season 1. I mean, that guy's a great director, and again, that's top to top.
Yeah. Have you checked out any of Nick Pizzolato's writing? Because he has he has like short stories and like a novel and things like that.
I don't think I have. Maybe in like one of I have like a million horror anthology books. If he has anything in one of those, then maybe I read it, but I definitely never read any of his novels.
There's a novel out there called Galveston by Nick Pizzolato that's pretty awesome. It's not a horror type of novel, but it's more of a, it's within the crime genre, let's say. And it has almost like a Jim Thompson sort of thing going on. And it just has like a very brutal, like negative ending. You know what I mean?
Cool. I'll have to check that out. I've been meaning to read more since I remember when we used to tour all the time, I'd read a lot, since that's obviously stopped. I don't seem to read as much. Not proud of it.
I can't read I can't read in the van. Like I get car sick, believe it or not.
Yeah, I never had a problem with it. I was always like the guy in the loft just reading. That's how I dealt with like the long, especially in Europe, when you get like one day off on a tour. But all right, moving on.
Yeah, so for 9, I have a movie called The Clove Hitch Killer, and
oh man, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, 2018. Directed by Duncan Skiles and written by Christopher Ford. It stars Dylan McDermott, Charlie Plummer, Samantha Mathis, and Madison Beatty. And they're in and of itself, these kind of like nostalgic, like 80s, like horror films, horror, like, Stranger Things like that. There's also Summer of '84, which came out around the same time. But Clovage Killer just operated on like a different level completely.
Yeah, I'm kind of kicking myself for not even remembering to put that on the list. I loved it too.
Yeah, it's great. You know, and Dylan McDermott, it's like I think is an underrated actor, really.
Oh, absolutely. And that performance it's pretty masterful. I mean, again, it keeps you guessing. You're not really sure. Is he or isn't he? Is he the guy? And I love it. I think you got the stuff with the kids right. You know, they act like high school kids act.
Yeah, it's great.
And it was completely believable and authentic. We just rewatched it every October. My girlfriend and I make a list of things we want to watch, things we want to show each other, and that was one of the movies I wanted her to see.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, man. And like I was saying, there was a couple of other films that came around that same time, and like Summer of '84. I think I watched Summer of '84 and Clovage Killer like within a week of each other. And Summer of '84 was like, too. Yeah, it's just fun, you know, whatever. But it wasn't nearly as good as this.
No, I mean, I think that's the opposite. Like the way the kids acted in that, it was very stilted and felt unnatural, and some adult's idea of how kids act. And it's weird, the tonal shift in the end of that movie. It's a pretty lighthearted movie until like the last 15 minutes.
It gets like real dark.
It took me for a another movie that came out around then, Super Dark Times. Did you see that one?
Yes, I did. I totally forgot about that one. I think that might have made this list as well.
Yeah, it just popped into my head now too. So, that was a really good one. Summer of '84 was fun. It's not something I ever recommend.
The guy,
see it or don't.
The guy who's like the cop looks like the dude that plays guitar in Converge. I think that guy. Yeah, it's like kind of
maybe it is.
It's kind of like this soft, like doughy guy, you know.
Maybe he's got an acting career we don't know about.
It's like a secret acting career.
Well, my number 9 is a Polish film from 2015, directed by Marcin Rona. It's called Demon.
Oh yeah, man. Okay, go ahead.
Did you see that? Great movie. Horror movie, takes place at a wedding, which if you've ever been to a wedding, you know, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's another one of those things, like this guy is either having complete mental breakdown or is possessed. And it keeps you guessing, and the central performance by the actor whose name I can't remember is fantastic. He has to carry a lot of the movie. He does a great job. And this movie kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I heard a little bit about it, and I was excited to check it out, and I loved it. And I was like, I can't wait to see what this director does next. But tragically, he hung himself shortly after he completed this movie.
Yeah, man. Which, I heard about this film on, I don't know if you listen to the Shockwaves podcast, but
I don't.
That they mentioned this, and I was like, oh yeah, I have to see this. And where is this available? Can you like stream it somewhere, or like on Amazon or something like that, or iTunes?
I believe it is on Amazon. Yeah, and you can definitely rent it on iTunes. I think that's how I saw it initially. I've seen this one twice.
Damn.
And there's just a great atmosphere of dread from beginning to end. And it's really tragic, man. It's too bad the guy had a lot of talent.
Oh, it's on Shudder actually.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, I have a Shudder subscription, so I'm just I'm adding it right now to my my watch list. Boom.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's great. It's it's more of a subtle horror film. It's not really particularly gory or anything like that. It just relies mostly on a tense atmosphere and that lead performance.
I think that in general, movies have people are too impatient with films these days, and unless it gets right to the point right away, people get sort of, they lose interest in a weird way, and that wasn't always the case. Like some of the best movies, some of my favorite movies, like from the 70s, like they take Like for example, Once Upon a Time in the West. That opening scene is like fucking like 10 minutes long or something like that with no dialogue or something, you know? And it just,
Right.
I love that. I love when films have this
Me
like
too.
pacing that draws you into the vibe of the movie and creates like an atmosphere, and you kind of slowly like are drawn in. That's like some of my favorite filmmaking.
Me too. And I'm not like a P.T. Anderson fan or even like a huge fan of There Will Be Blood in general, but like, I believe the first 17 minutes of that movie has zero dialogue.
Yeah, it's cool.
And I love stuff like that. I love quieter movies for sure. And I think people really want more of a thrill ride now. Like, even in horror, like, you know, the mainstream audiences that they want like something more like The Conjuring. You know, they don't have the patience for a movie like Demon or something like that.
Yeah, there's a movie that comes to mind which is not on this list because I did not see it until recently. That is all atmosphere, and I think is probably on your list. So I'm not going to mention the name of that film, but
Okay.
you know, but that's once again, it's all atmosphere. It's just two characters, and it's such a tone of the film and it's all about that. It's all about this vibe. You know what I mean? And that would have been on my list had I actually watched it within the time frame that we're talking about. So
cool. Well, if it's not on mine, tell me what it is at the end.
I'll keep that in mind when we get to the end of this.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So you're number 8?
The Maniac remake from 2012, directed by Frank Calhoun. He did the Amityville movie, and it was written by Alessandra Aya. High Tension, Hills of Eyes, you know, Piranha 3 or Triple D or whatever the hell it's called.
It's got his fingerprints all over.
Yeah.
It's got his fingerprints all over. Like I was, that's on my honorable mentions. That was teetering in my top 10. I was shocked to go back and see, oh, he didn't direct it. Like, I kind of thought he did.
Nah, it seems like he did too. I'm a fan of all of his other films, the European movies he made, and I also like the Hills Have Eyes remake he did quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a brutal film. I remember seeing it in the theater and people walking out.
There's a very short list of remakes that I like. You know what I mean? Like those two and the Dawn of the Dead remake I thought was cool. You know?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
You know, I know that it's got like a new metal like remake vibe to it, but you know, whatever. I still thought it was cool.
It was of its time. It's weird to think that that's a Zack Snyder film. It's so different from anything he would go on to do.
Yeah, you know.
But there's a lot to talk about with Maniac. I mean, it is so good. The music, the late night tone of it. You know, they changed the setting from New York to LA, and it really doesn't. You know, you don't miss anything there.
I think it's possible to like the original and the remake. You know what I mean? I think that you can't. It shouldn't be like a one or the other. Because I mean, I love Joe Spinell. I mean, he's like my fucking spirit animal, man. I fucking love Joe Spinell. You know, and
yeah.
And then when I first heard about a movie with Elijah Wood playing the main, the killer, the maniac, Joe. I think his name is Joe in the movie. And I'm like, how the hell are you going to cast Elijah Wood to play the role that Joe Spinell played? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was a strange choice.
But the reactualization of the movie, it fucking makes sense, man. And I think Elijah Wood is like, I actually really like Elijah Wood as an actor. You know?
Yeah, he's great. And behind the scenes, too, he's a huge genre fan. His company produces a lot of horror movies.
You know, and yeah, I have a lot of respect for him, man.
Sure, and he's great in this. Like, he plays a fucking creep really well, but he plays a different kind of creep than the guy in the original. Like, this is definitely slicker, less grindhouse, more art house.
Yeah,
I thought. And controversial opinion, I like this better than the original. I don't hold the original in the highest regard like a lot of people do. I don't think I've seen it since I was like 12. But this, I recently rewatched it in October, and it holds up. It's probably about 10 years old at this point.
Yeah, 2012 it came out, so it's 8 years old.
Oh, okay, 8 years.
Yeah.
What did you think of the point of view concept? Because when I first heard that, I thought that was a really dumb idea, but I found myself kind of forgetting about it.
I think
halfway
that
into the film.
This was probably one of the best usages of that plot device, of that narrative device. Is mostly it falls short with me because I've never the found footage kind of films that are all point of view. I think kind of suck.
Right.
But I
there's
really
a couple good ones, but yeah.
Yeah, but this one it worked, man, and I actually didn't even like after a while I just was like, oh, this is the movie,
Right. It's funny you brought up found footage because I almost feel like that's what the producers wanted it to be, and there was probably some sort of argument of like, no, and this is what they settled on.
Yeah, maybe.
But it works, and it makes the shots where it goes outside of his point of view more interesting. I think it makes the movie a little bit more interesting, and this is great. That's one I talk about a lot, but it is controversial. People seem to like either love it or hate it. It's that kind of movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know people that didn't like it at all.
Yeah, it does its own thing enough to justify it existing. It just doesn't go through the beats of like soulless remakes. Like the previous decade had a lot of those movies. That Studio Platinum Doom was just pumping out remakes from like directors, and they were just solely to make cash. It seemed like the Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street, all those movies, they can be remade. You can do something cool with them, but they didn't.
Yeah, I feel like the My Bloody Valentine remake actually had some good points to it, honestly. I don't know if you saw that.
Did you see? I did. I didn't see the remake for that. I did see the remake of The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Another movie? Fuck it. I totally left that off the list too.
I didn't know that even came out.
They
have a remake of that movie?
Yeah, it's great. It's sort of like a remake, a sequel, and like a meta sequel. But the original film exists in the remake.
Huh.
It's a huge part of the plot. It was much better than I expected. It was a big surprise. I definitely recommend that.
I didn't even know that existed, man.
Yeah, it's good. All right.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
actually, real quick about
oh, sure.
About Maniac. That also, you mentioned the score, and I feel like that might have been like one of the first movies to start that trend of those like electronic scores, like those kind of retro, sort of 80s sounding synth scores that really became popular.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you're right. Like this, and maybe It Follows was like the first time I noticed like, hey, wow, these scores are fucking great. This is like something Carpenter would do.
Yep.
And you're seeing it a bit more now. So you got to be really good at it for it to stand out. Like, again, Joe Begos, he uses Steve Moore as his composer in all of his movies, and he kind of does that synthy thing. And I don't think there's anyone better than him doing it right now.
Nah, Steve Moore is the top of the food chain for that stuff, man. Zombie,
absolutely.
Like his band Zombie's great and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't Zombie tour with ISIS once?
A few times,
yeah.
We
went
right? To. I think we did the coasts with them, and the UK. Maybe a little bit of Europe. I can't remember. They were great. They were cool guys, and I really, really liked watching their band. It was fucking phenomenal.
Yeah,
watching Steve play like 20 instruments on stage. Is there anything this guy can't do?
Yeah, that dude's super talented, man. I fucking admire that guy for sure.
Yeah, I ran into him when I saw VFW. It was just cool to see him again. It's been like a decade.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we're on to 7. We're on to 8. I haven't done.
Yeah,
my
you do
8.
year 8 yet. Yep.
Okay. Mine is just from 2018, The House That Jack Built by Lars von Trier.
Yeah. Okay.
There's so much in this movie. I mean, it's 2.5 hours long, and it's a Lars von Trier film. So there's endless points to talk about, I guess.
Yeah.
It's very much a Lars von Trier film where it's disturbing, it's incredibly well shot, it's incredibly self-indulgent, and it's really, really funny when it really shouldn't be.
I haven't
think
seen it, man.
Matt
Believe
Dillon,
it or not, I didn't see this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I know. I
Matt
feel like
Dillon,
a clown. I feel like I really let everybody down by not knowing this film intimately.
Well, it's broken up into 5 incidents, and he's a serial killer, and he just is talking to someone off camera. You don't ever see him till the end. Spoilers, maybe. So he's going over like his five kills that he deems important, I guess, and shows a little bit of his background as a child. There's some really disturbing stuff with that and animals, and this isn't based on a real serial killer, but it seems to be really well researched as sort of like the way serial killers grow up, their methods, why they do things. There's some funny stuff with him having a obsessive compulsive disorder. He has to clean the crime scene over and over and over again, and it shows like the process of him attempting to drive away, but he thinks, oh, there might be blood behind the painting on the wall, and it's a great film. I just read that there's a director's cut coming out with like 5 minutes of extra footage.
Oh, cool.
I honestly don't know if I need to see that. This movie has some really disturbing stuff, again, involving children, just brutal murders. And just when you think the film is going on too long, it has one of the best last 20 minutes I've ever seen. It just goes in a completely new direction, and it's really great. I don't want to spoil it for you, so I'll keep that under wraps. But this is great. This is Lars von Trier at his completely unhinged. He's such an interesting filmmaker. He just doesn't give a fuck, and just does exactly what he wants to do. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And this is one of the times it worked.
Actually, the house that Jack built, director's cut, is available now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime Video.
Oh, yeah. I like it. The cut I saw was pretty brutal. It felt NC-17 to me, or unrated. I know the movie really infuriated a lot of people, like his films tend to do. I was glad he made something good after making the 5-hour porn that he made.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I try to see all of his films. You know what I mean? I like Von Trier, even though he's always interesting. Let's say, and I'm not saying I love everything he's done. Like, I actually didn't really like Nymphomaniac that much. You know what I mean? And
no, I hated it. Actually, I hated it. I thought it was really just. I don't understand what I'm supposed to get out of that.
You know, Antichrist I thought was great. And, his other films, Dancer in the Dark, all that stuff was really cool. But,
yeah,
and just to be clear, man, I wanted to see this movie. It's like I feel like I have to justify the fact that I did not watch this. Because when I first heard about it, it was like Von Trier, Matt Dillon, who I like, big fan of Matt Dillon's. And just sometimes, man, I just get too fucking busy, man. I can't do all these things. I just can't do it sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's okay, man. You're forgiven. I forgive you.
I try to get it all in. Sometimes I just can't do it. And so, anyway,
this is so up your alley. Like, this is, when you see it, it's going to be your new favorite movie. I guarantee it.
I just, as we're speaking, purchased it on Amazon, the director's cut. So I'll watch it later.
Yeah, let me know what you think.
That's how much faith I have in you, Jeff. I sight unseen, I fucking bought this movie on your recommendation.
I hope I don't steer you wrong, because I get a lot of angry texts from people being like, dude, that sucked.
Nah, man, it's going to be good.
Well, not that movie, just movies in general.
Me too, man, believe me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're at year 7.
Okay, my number 7 is It Follows from 2014, written and directed by David Robert Mitchell. And there's really not much to say about this film besides the fact that it's awesome, and it's like has this anachronistic sort of vibe to it, which I really appreciated, where you kind of feel like it takes place in the 80s, but
right.
The chick pulls out like this fucking like sidekick, like mobile phone or something like that.
Yeah, it's like, the weirdest thing. Cell phone is never brought up again.
I know, right? It's weird.
Very.
Stuff like that I love. I love like those little quirks that movies have sometimes.
Me too. And my theory is like it's so dreamlike. Like even like the instance where she pulls out the phone, like the tone of the movie, I can almost see myself describing to someone like, oh fuck, I had this weird dream last night. This thing was following me around, but it was a different person every time, and we tried to trap it in a swimming pool, and it has this real dreamlike feel to it and logic, and yeah, I mean that guy's an interesting filmmaker. I don't know if you saw his new movie Under the Silver Lake.
Not yet. No, I know about it though, but I haven't seen it.
I've seen it twice, and I still don't know if I love it or hate it.
That's kind of good sometimes, though. You know, if you can't tell right away.
Yeah. I saw it the first time with my girlfriend. She hated it, so and most of my friends did too. But like, something about it brought me back to see it again, and there's so much about it to admire. I'll say It Follows is one of the only movies I watched twice in one day. I watched it in the morning. Yeah, I watched it in the morning, and then at night. This was back when I was married. I was like, do you want to watch It Follows? I just couldn't stop thinking about it, so I watched it again. Yeah, I love that movie. It's in my honorable mentions somehow. Like, I thought it would be much higher on the list. Like, and it just didn't make the cut, I guess.
A couple of things. I agree about the dreamlike quality to it, and it did. And this is some of the thoughts I had about the dream aspect of it. Is like, there's a couple of different metaphors I think in the film that were brought out. Like, you know, obviously there's like, you know, sexually transmitted diseases. Like that's the obvious one.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But the relentlessness at which this, whatever you want to call it, pursues different people. It's almost like. It resonated in a way where some of the things that are haunting you from your past, like you might manifest themselves in a dream in a similar way to this movie. You know what I mean? Like sometimes like you have dreams and like, you know, something, it's not, you know, something that's completely different than the actual thing in the dream is really what's in your subconscious. You know, maybe something that you've never really addressed from like years and years ago is following you around and like coloring the way that you interact with people and like haunting you in your dreams. And that's kind of like what I took away from the movie too, in addition to the obvious, you know, STD scare, you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, that's a really smart way to look at it. And he seems like a smart filmmaker. I'm sure that's, I'm sure what you're seeing is probably or thinking is intentional. It's a great movie and also great final shot too.
Yeah, totally, man. Loved it. And also, once again, like disaster piece, film score. Like, you know, this movie was also one of those early entries into the retro synth film score world. Yep. Like one of the sort of like you know, perpetrators of that.
Sure. Yeah. Great score. Great movie. My number 7, I think this might be the movie you mentioned earlier. It's from 2014, directed by Leah Jenick. It's called Honeymoon.
That's not the film, but go ahead. Yeah.
Did you see this one?
Yeah, it was awesome. I enjoyed it.
Man, yeah. This is one of the ones I had on the list to rewatch, and I loved it even more on the second viewing. It's a small film. It focuses on 2 people, but there's really only 4 people in the entire cast.
Mm-hmm.
Cabin in the Woods movie, you know, this couple on their honeymoon go to a cabin in the woods. Strange lights, strange things start happening, and this like joyous occasion that it's supposed to be slowly starts to crumble. And again, like you wonder, are you watching a supernatural horror film? Is this something more psychological? Is this a drama? It doesn't really give you any answers, but the more it goes along, you piece it together. And in the end, that's another kind of thing I like. It avoids a lot of like horror tropes. You know, there's no like they band together to fight the evil thing. It moves along and then it's over and shit goes very, very wrong. And nothing in the end is really explained to you. You're not really sure what happened. And that to me is a more interesting kind of mystery, one that's not necessarily solved. It leaves you to turn it over in your head.
Yeah, I like stuff like that, man.
Yeah, two people, have to carry the movie. The actors do a good job. It's a tight 87 minutes. It doesn't wear out its welcome. But it's not paced too fast. It moves really well. I'm surprised to see this director. She hasn't directed a feature film since. I'm not sure why, but this is a good example of just tone, atmosphere, setting, acting, everything just firing the way it should be. And again, I found the ending, that final minute, highly disturbing. It stayed with me, and that's why I made the top 10.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So my number 6 is A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night from 2014. It's
I had that in my honorable mentions.
Persian-produced vampire western, shot in California somewhere, I believe. And
God, yeah, I can't remember the name of the town, but yeah, I think I've actually been there.
Yeah. The film was directed and imagined by Anna Lily Amirpour, with cinematography by Lyle Vincent. And the vampire is played by Sheila Vaughn. And it's like, aside from it being a great movie, culturally, it's cool because, like, Persia, Iran is religiously fundamental. It's a fundamentalist sort of vibe in that country, and a film like this might actually result in the filmmaker being thrown in jail or something like that. You know what I mean? Or even worse, maybe. You know what I mean? So on that level alone, I give it props. But it's just like a different type of vampire film, and I love. I love all the horror standards, like werewolves and vampires, things like that. And it has like a very strong sort of feminist sort of slant to it, without being cringy. Sure. Without being like #MeToo cringy. And I'm not saying I disagree with the Me Too movement. I'm just saying that sometimes shit gets heavy-handed in movies. So don't get excited out there and try to frame me as some sort of misogynist, because that's not true.
Absolutely. I second that.
Yeah. And what, the fact that I'm not a misogynist?
Yes.
Good.
And that this movie's great.
Yeah. And it's a very unique take on like an ancient, horror standard. And I really appreciated that. It's shot in black and white. It's got an outstanding soundtrack. And which I went out and bought the soundtrack, and it was like,
oh, cool.
Yeah, it was like cool music. I probably would have never heard. It's great, and one of my favorites.
Yeah, the black and white looks so good. I'm not sure this movie would really even be as good if it was in color.
It's hard to imagine it in color, honestly.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just so atmospheric, and yeah, that's a great movie. The one that I considered for my number 10. It's one I recommend a lot, and that's one people seem to enjoy too. Yeah,
great soundtrack once again.
Yes. My next movie is 2014. Well, it's my number 6.
It's your number 6. Yep.
2014, The Babadook, directed by Jennifer Kent. This movie came with like a lot of hype. I remember I took a Lyft, and my Lyft driver was also a film critic, and he just seen it at a festival, and was going on and on and on about it. He's like, "You're a horror fan, you got to see The Babadook. You got to see it. You got to see it." So finally, again, I think this was a video on demand. I don't quite remember how I saw it. It wasn't in the theater. This was another movie on the list that I watched twice in one day, once in the morning and once at night. 'Cause my first viewing, I wasn't really sure how I felt about it. It came with all this hype, great reviews from critics, raves, and it didn't quite connect with me as much as I thought it would first time around. I think I was expecting more of a straightforward horror film, and it was definitely more of a psychological over rather than supernatural. And second viewing, I really loved it, and rewatched it again a couple weeks ago, and completely like solidified that I love this movie. Its themes are not, they're not subtle, they're not complex. It deals a lot with grief and stress, and I think they're handled really well. And this is a great movie. Have you seen it?
I have. I've seen it a couple times actually, and I really quite liked it. Definitely an analog for grief. Very unique sort of film. Yeah, totally enjoyed it. Thought it was great.
Yeah, I mean, talk about, that kid does a phenomenal job, because I wanted him to like fucking murder him 15 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, me too. I was going to say that about the kid too. It's like, I can understand why, fucking kid almost got murdered,
Yeah, that is the most aggravating kid in a movie ever. I've had people like tell me they had to shut it off because it was driving them crazy. But that it needs to be that to show what leads to her, eventual breakdown. And that phone call from the Babadook moment really sent chills up my spine. That was a great scare. It's subtle. There's not a lot of like banging jump scares or anything like that. It's just a really well crafted psychological film. I mean, a lot of people argue it's not even really a horror movie, but it counts for me.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah, love it. What you got for number 5?
All right, now, we just on my number 6, we talked about how I'm not a misogynist and all that kind of stuff, but number 5 might change some people's mind.
All right, I'm intrigued.
It's 2016's Terrifier, directed by fellow tri-state area denizen Damien Leone, and it features Art the Clown, who was introduced in Leone's short called The Ninth Circle, and in 2013 there was like an anthology called All Hallows Eve, which had that Ninth Circle short in there. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to apologize for liking this movie. It's just an awesome slasher film, and it's an upgrade to some of our favorite slasher characters from the 80s with a new century, new millennium brutality added to it, and it's just a fucking mean-spirited, violent, gory slasher film, and that's literally all it is. You know what I mean? And I fucking dug it.
It doesn't surprise me then that I have not seen this. I'm going to throw myself at the mercy and please forgive me. I'm a poser. I'm being exposed right now. Yeah. I'm not a true horror head. I'm not a huge fan of slashers.
Yeah.
Or mean-spirited movie. I hate the Saw movies. I hate Hostel movies. Not just because of their content. I just kind of feel they're dumb movies with nothing to say, nothing interesting going on. But that said, I'm not like, there are a lot of great, like Maniac slasher. That's an example of how to do it right. Well, since I haven't seen this one, now it's on my list, and sounds like a fun date night.
Yeah, it's brutal, man. And like I said, in this day and age, like people might find it offensive. I don't give a fuck, honestly. It's like, I like what I like, whatever. And
sure,
it's I think I'm not going to apologize for it, but it's a fucking fun movie, man. And
you like what you like.
And also, it was successful, and Terrifier 2 is due out later this year. So there you go.
All right. There you have it. Double feature.
Yeah, double feature, 1 and 2. The thing I do like about it, though, is that it just, the whole vibe just had this, like, sleazy, like, late 70s look to it, too. You know what I mean? It looked like a sleazy movie. And
do you know if it was shot on film, or?
I'd have to research that. I'm gonna say probably not, because it was maybe 2 is shot on film, but I think it was like a low budget production, and like it's shot on video and treated to look like the grainy grindhouse kind of vibe to it.
Sure, that became a popular sort of technique after think the first time I saw that was in House of the Devil.
Yeah.
Which, had that come out this take, it would definitely be on the list.
Yeah, that was great. I enjoyed that one too. Yeah.
Love that movie. Ty West is a interesting director. I'll always watch anything he does.
I don't love all of his films, but I like that one.
Yeah, I like the Ghost one he did after. What the hell was that? The Innkeepers or something. That was pretty good.
Yeah, that was all right.
He did a movie I considered but it'd been too long since I've seen it. It was The Sacrament, which is basically a retelling of the Jonestown.
Yeah.
It was a strange choice. I think a straight up Jonestown story movie would be great.
Yeah.
But they did sort of a weirdly fictionalized version of that. Well, okay, so I think we're at my number 5.
Yep.
You'll probably hear the words tone, mood, and atmosphere come up in all these. but my number 5 was a movie that was filmed in 2015 under the title February, but didn't come out until 2017 under the name Blackcoat's Daughter.
Oh man, yes.
Okay. Directed by Oz Perkins, who actually, I didn't know this, is the son of Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is I think this is his debut film, and talk about coming out of the parks, just coming out of the box swinging. But wow, from first frame to the last frame, this movie is just seeping in dread and atmosphere. It takes place at a campus. Again, small cast, like the school's out for winter break, and a couple of the girls are left behind, and one of them may be possessed by the devil or a demon. And something like that could be very fucking cheesy or sleazy, but this is just a masterclass in the tone and atmosphere, and just tastefully done. You never get like a really good look at what it is that's possibly possessing her. But just everything about it, the wintry atmosphere of it. I felt like while I was watching it, like the room dropped like 15 degrees. Like I was cold when I watched it, even though I'm in a heated room on my couch. Like it's that effective. And not to mention all the movies I see where people get stabbed. There's a stabbing in this movie where, like, man, you really feel it. You really feel like the brutality of what it must be like to be stabbed. And demonic possession is something I always find. It's a genre I enjoy. It's not often done right though, and this does something interesting with it. It has three different timelines, 3 different perspectives. It's great. It's a great horror movie, and I think it's one that you can easily recommend to someone who's maybe not so much into horror or more into like the mainstream, something like The Conjuring, and they might be able to enjoy something like this.
Actually, The Blackcoat's Daughter was my number 4.
Oh,
so these two dovetail very tightly together here. And
nice.
Yeah, it's.
I had a feeling this would be on the list.
Yeah, it's so completely the kind of film that I would like, and Oz Perkins is great. He's got some other films out which I dig, and it's incredibly well acted. It's got Emma Roberts and Kiernan Shipka in it, who are great. And I'm a huge Emma Roberts fan. I mean, I unapologetically, I'm a fan of American Horror Story, and she is featured on that quite a bit. So, I watched.
We just started. I just started watching. We finished the cult season, which it was. American Horror Story is just kind of trashy fun, and I enjoyed that season. It was hilarious. We just watched the Apocalypse season, and I absolutely hated it though. So.
I really like the Apocalypse one, but I'm not gonna go to bat for it. I like it personally. I like all the seasons. It's got Dylan McDermott was in it. Emma Roberts is great.
Yep.
I think she's an excellent actress. I think she plays a lot of different roles in that. The list of actors that are go on, and it's. I thought it was some of my favorite like TV actors are in it. and
Yeah.
you know, that guy, that blonde kid, what's his name? The good-looking guy.
Oh, right. He's in that. He's one of the X-Men or something. He's the fast.
That I think he's a good
Silver
actor, man. I can't remember his fucking name now. Though he's like this blonde, like good-looking guy, but
Yeah.
he's called upon to do a lot of different roles in there, and I think it's all good. You know, I think it's a cool show, and I don't know how many more seasons they have left, but you know, I enjoy it.
Yeah. I hear the new one's really good, the 80s slasher one.
You know what? I didn't like that as much as some of the others, but
Oh, interesting.
yeah. I think it speaks to the 80s thing, which we talked about earlier. I think that maybe the 80s episode should have came out a couple of years earlier, maybe. I don't know. But
right. I hear you.
Yeah.
One last thing about Black Coat Star, too. I love the way the characters talk to each other in this movie. There's almost like an extra pause when someone responds, and it really adds to like the pacing and tone of the movie. I can't wait to see what he does next. He's got I think it's called Hansel and Gretel. He's got coming out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I've seen some ads for that on the subway. Yeah, it looks cool. Especially knowing that he's directing it, I think is amazing. You know.
Right, like normally a PG-13 movie coming out in January just spells like disaster. But knowing that he's the one directing, like I have confidence that's going to be great.
That actor's name is Evan Peters. That's the name. The guy I couldn't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he is one of the X-Men, right?
I don't know, actually. You know, I didn't really follow the X-Men films. You would think I would, being a comic book fan, but I only watched the first couple.
No, those movies, the continuity between the series it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, but you know, what the fuck do I know?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was your number 4. What is your number 3?
Wait, what was your number 4?
Oh, okay.
That was number 5 for you, so we kind of morphed my 4 and your 5. So what's your number 4?
Okay. My number 4, another debut, another incredibly strong debut. It's from 2015, Robert Eggers' The Witch.
Okay, cool.
Again, like, this is the kind of movie, like, it got something like an 89% or something on Rotten Tomatoes, but like an F from audience scores, which I always find interesting. There's such a huge gap between what the paying public thinks and what the critics think.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me when I loved it, obviously. But when I saw it, I was like, this is going to go over a lot of people's heads who are expecting something more of a thrill ride. You know, The Conjuring came out, I think, a year before that, and horror was all of a sudden, you know, popular again because the movie made like a shit ton of money. And so people were interested in horror again, and they go to see something like this, and they're like, what in the fuck did I just watch? You know, it's in English, but it's a completely different dialect. It's shot with all natural light and candlelight. It's very slow, and there's no like. It's called The Witch, but there's no really like big bad guy throughout the whole movie to root against. You know what I mean? It's very internal, and this is one that I could watch over and over and get something new out of it each time.
Yeah, I really like that movie too, man. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, plus you know a black evil goat that morphs into the devil. You know, so what's not to love?
One of the things.
Guy,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. Sorry.
No. You go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things I liked about it too is and I don't even know if this was done intentionally, but the sort of references to Satanism, you know, more of a response to the lack of permissiveness that Christian ideologies have, and how like Satanism was more about like freedom and no repression and giving in to your sort of baser instincts, and as demonstrated at the end of the film, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, sort of responding to an oppressive like monotheistic philosophy, you know. And I think that was like the thing I was most impressed about the film. Aside from the craft of making the film and the acting, I thought was great too.
Right, and it's a great transformation of that character from beginning to end. And yeah, on a technical level, this guy's the real deal. I don't know if you saw The Lighthouse, it's follow up to this.
That I did. That connects to what I said earlier. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's an outstanding movie. This guy has my money for everything he does, and this, yeah. Really, really love this one. I see myself watching this probably every couple years.
So that we're coming down to the wire now, man. We got our top three.
Yeah.
You know, this is like the top three here. So my number three is 2018's Mandy, written and directed by Panos Cosmatos, and I think I've watched this movie about 15 times in the last like several months since it came out. So.
Yeah. Oh man, this was tough not to include in my top 10. Yeah. I mean, this is just such a stylish, psychedelic trip. Every frame of this movie is gorgeous, even though like it's sort of a brutal story.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, the story is quite simple. It's a revenge movie, you know, and there's like a cult and Nicolas Cage. The thing I like about Nicolas Cage, first of all, I've always been a fan of his. I don't give a fuck what anyone says about him. I love Nicolas Cage.
Sure, yeah, he's always good for something. I mean, like you're gonna see a performance when you see him.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go on record to say that I think Nicolas Cage really shines when he's directed properly. I think that Nicolas Cage requires a very, very good director to get great performances out of him. You know, and I think in this case he got great performances. Like Panos Cosmatos was able to get great Nicolas Cage performances. And
absolutely,
yeah, and the thing I like about his character is there's like these references to him being a different type of guy, you know, prior to the film, like maybe a wilder dude, you know, like violent.
You see someone off from
you know,
there's that scene in the helicopter. Someone offers him a beer and he turns it down. You see like maybe some alcoholism in his past. Yeah,
and they picked that King Crimson song as the intro, and I was like, man, what a perfect fucking song for this scene.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's just like you can see that he might have had a way more exciting life at some point, and he's you know, sort of this regular guy. He's going to work every day, chopping trees down in the fucking with some lumberjacks or whatever, being flown in, and he's trying to live this more pastoral life with his lady out in the remote area, you know, some remote forest somewhere. And you also get the sense that Mandy, his lady, is kind of underneath his whole salvation as a man. So he owes a lot of his, you know, kind of redemption to her. And that's why when she's taken away from him, it's such a heavy experience for him. You know what I mean? And then he goes back descends into the animalistic side of his personality. Now, all that stuff I just said isn't even explained. It's just your mind, like your imagination is sparked by the film, by the imagery that's presented to you in the movie, and you just kind of build this whole character around Red, Nicolas Cage's character, and that's what I love about the movie.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, it's not explained, but you see it in the character, like the way Nicolas Cage plays it and the way he's directed. And there's also like right at the most horrible moment in his life, he looks on the TV and there's a fucking cheddar goblin on there.
Yeah.
It's just that one moment that it's just like, the world doesn't care about your problems.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're alone. and like all this, the heaviness you're feeling, you know, the world still goes on. And I thought that was a really like nice touch, and very bizarre, but worked really well. Yeah, there's so much. The music, sadly, it was the last for Johann Janssen. It's the last score he ever did. He died shortly after, or actually before the film was released. I think he passed away.
Before it was released, he passed away. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got some people we know on the soundtrack. Faith Colloquia Turner. She does some singing on one of the songs.
Oh wow. Okay.
The dude from Sun contributed. Stephen O'Malley, he contributed some guitar to the soundtrack, which is great. It adds a lot to the movie.
Yeah, that scene particularly, that sort of like scene, I thought was really cool with O'Malley's guitar work in there.
Yeah, this is another movie where the characters talk to each other in a strange sort of manner, where there's a lot of pauses and it's kind of quieter. And I love stuff like that. It can really derail a movie, or it can really, really make it. Like, I don't know if you're a fan of the Neon Demon. I am not.
No, I'm not into that.
That has sort of, that has a similar vibe, but it sort of doesn't really make sense and becomes aggravating after a while, the way people talk like this. It drove me nuts in that movie. But in something like Mandy, it makes complete sense.
Neon Demon, there was that guy that was in the beginning of Love, that Gaspar Noé movie. You know, the guy who starred in that film, who was like got jerked off in the first scene. That guy. Yeah,
that's a bad movie too.
He's in Neon Demon.
Oh, I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, because he wasn't getting jerked off probably, but yeah, he was.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
But another thing about Mandy is, check it out, man. Panos Cosmatos' father directed Cobra, starring Sylvester Stallone.
And Tombstone.
Right. Another great movie. But let me focus on Cobra for a second. I feel like...
Oh, by all means.
Cobra and Mandy have a similar look with the way they use red. Like, there are certain similarities with those two films. And some of the more action scenes in Mandy make me think a little bit of like a movie like Cobra, you know?
Yeah, I can see because it also deals with some sort of like, you know, murderous cult.
Yeah.
There's that kind of similarity. I would have loved Sylvester Stallone to show up in this.
The greatest Sly was in Mandy, you know? Yeah,
maybe part two.
Somewhere there's a director's cut of Cobra too, and that has a lot more violence in it. That didn't.
Right, we were just talking about this, right?
Yeah, we were, and Stallone had like a way different vision for that movie than the version that made it to the theaters apparently, and there's like a lot of it got cut. There's you got to remember too, is the '80s, you know what I mean, and like his version of the film was a lot more extreme. And I mean, I'm sure that at this stage of the game, there's hardly any interest in Cobra, but like, it would be cool if there was like some director's cut of that movie out there at some point. But I doubt that'll ever happen.
Yeah, if it hasn't happened by now, you know, like when DVD and Blu-ray kind of took hold, you saw a lot more of that, director's cuts of this and alternate versions. And I think that's weirdly one of Stallone's more kind of forgotten movies.
I agree. Because it is an unsung gem in a lot of ways. Yeah,
it's fun. I mean, he cuts his pizza with scissors.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fucking amazing. Did you like the director's previous film, the Beyond the Black Rainbow?
Oh yeah, I own that on Blu-ray. I love that movie.
Man, that's one that is impenetrable to me. I've seen it a couple times, and each time I think this is going to be the one where it makes sense to me, but each time I'm like, nope, I hate this.
I think you have to be on mushrooms to watch that movie.
That's exactly what I think. I was like, man, when I was a fucking pothead, why didn't this exist?
Yeah,
it's like
it's
this would be like
that kind of movie.
Constantly.
You probably make more sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, maybe if I ever, fucking get back on it. I'll cue that up. And,
Also, with Mandy, it also has a small part by an actor who I really hope gets utilized in the future is Richard Brake as the chemist, the guy who makes like the over-the-top LSD that the Black Skulls have been ingesting that transform them into demons. Yeah, Richard Brake. He was in that awful Rob Zombie film, 31. And
you just have to say Rob Zombie film, and I'll just assume it's awful.
Don't ask me why, but I saw this movie in the movie theater, and me and Mike went to go see it, and I was like,
I heard this one was particularly awful.
It was bad, man. It was terrible. Me and Mike went to go see it on 42nd Street. Like we were doing this whole like thing, and it's like, it's like a new multiplex, but it used to be a different theater, like back in the 70s and the 80s, and it was like the week or two that the film got a theatrical release, and there was like 8 people in the audience, and there was a filmed Q&A with Rob Zombie after the movie, which we stuck around to watch. And Rob Zombie even admitted that he wrote the script for the movie in like an afternoon. And I was like,
and I imagine it shows.
Yeah, it's fucking all terrible. His movies suck. That guy's everything he's done. I hate all of his fucking movies, man.
I hate his films. I hate his music. It made like when you heard the Rob Zombie was going to make a horror movie, like, oh, that makes sense. I'll check it out. And like, what was it? House of a Thousand Corpses. It was just abysmal, and everything I've seen since has been equally bad. But I get it, man. I sometimes you find yourself in the theater wondering, why am I here? Like I saw Hatchet in the theater. Like it was this fucking terrible movie. But last thing about Mandy is like we didn't talk about, like, this movie goes completely insane in like the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it is just a fucking complete violent bloodbath.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what he does next.
Everyone gets their comeuppance in this movie, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then again that last shot, it's great.
Hell yeah.
It sticks with you. Similar to my number 3 movie, which this is one of my favorite movies of the last decade. It would probably be my number 1 on this list, although I think a lot of people would argue that it's not really a horror movie. But it had enough in it to qualify for me, anyway, and that's 2013's Enemy by Denis Villeneuve.
Dude, I don't even know that
starring
movie.
Jake Gyllenhaal. Really?
Huh, Enemy. Okay. I don't know that.
Do you know the director, Denis Villeneuve?
Yeah.
He did a movie called Prisoners. He did the new Blade Runner.
Uh-huh. Yeah, of course.
Which is, yeah.
Enemy.
Yeah, this is kind of one that went under the radar. He did a film with Jake Gyllenhaal a couple years before called Prisoners that, did fairly well, and they followed it up with this. And this is a real psychological head-scratcher about a doppelganger.
Okay.
Jake Gyllenhaal is watching a movie one day, and he sees an extra, and it looks exactly like him. And he's trying to track this guy down who is identical to him in every way. And since you haven't seen it, I think this is the best movie, one of those movies to go in cold.
Okay.
Not to not know too much about it, but it is very psychological and metaphorical. It's like what you're seeing might not necessarily be what's real, almost in like a David Lynch sort of way.
Wow. Okay.
But
cool.
This movie is so steeped in atmosphere. It takes place in Toronto, but they somehow make it feel empty and almost like decaying in a way. And
yeah,
I love this movie, and like I said, it's not completely a horror movie, but it's one that if you're a horror fan, you should see it.
Right on, man.
And
I added it to my my watch list here. Yeah,
I would watch this before you watch The House that Jack Built. Like,
okay.
This is I think it's a masterpiece. And I would recommend you watch it with someone because there is a lot to talk about by the end. This is like a film I love to show people. Like when I started dating my girlfriend and I got my new TV, I'm like, we got to watch Enemy, and just talked about it for like a couple days after. It's a really interesting film.
Damn.
Right. Yeah, you're going to love it. And one of my favorites of all time. And I'm curious to see this director's version of Dune, which he's working on now, which I tried reading one of those books on tour, and I got like 40 pages in and realized I had not retained one word of it. It just completely went over my head.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Frank Herbert's Dune, really, reading the book or anything like that. Yeah. It's
just sci-fi gobbledygook. Just not for me. I thought David Lynch's film version of it was interesting to look at. Curious to see what Denis Villeneuve brings to that table. Because I mean, Blade Runner 2 was a masterpiece.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Love that movie.
Yeah, that's the world you want to live in. Like, so beautiful.
There was Alejandro Jodorowsky was supposed to do a version of Dune that never got made, and that would have been interesting, I think.
Yeah, I saw the documentary. That guy's kind of a madman. Like, he's only made a couple films, but they're all at least interesting.
Yeah, no, I like all of his movies, man. Like, El Topo, Holy Mountain, Santa Sangre.
Yeah,
those are cool movies, I think.
Holy Mountain was a big stoner thing in my early 20s. When I first moved to Boston, like if you went to like a college party, that was playing in the background.
Yeah. I don't know how we got away with having naked kids in the movie, to be honest, but it's safe.
That's true. Yeah, God, I didn't even think of that. Things were different back then, I guess. I don't know.
Things were definitely different, man.
Yeah. Where are we at now? We're at your number 2?
Number 2.
Shit, moving right along.
The Void is my number 2, 2016. Canadian production by Stephen Kostansky and Jeremy Gillespie. More well known for their Astron 6 productions. And Astron 6 brought us all Father's Day, The Editor, and
Editor's great.
And let's not forget Manborg.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, The Editor, I know you and I both like that.
Yeah, that was almost on here, actually. I really, really enjoyed that movie. I know it's a comedy, but it works as a horror film, as a giallo.
Yeah. You can tell that movie was made by people who really appreciate the genre, though. You know what I mean?
And it's better than anything Dario Argento's done in, like, fucking 30 years.
I'll have to agree.
Or 25, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Well, this is, I think, the first movie we don't really agree on. I saw this, I think, when it came out. I did not care for it.
Okay.
So I don't remember it too well, but like, why is it so high for you?
Well, it checks a lot of boxes on things that I enjoy. Number one is like it has this H.P. Lovecraft sort of thing going on with like this cosmic horror.
Sure. Yeah.
Anything. Maybe more so as my interest in the occult and all that. There's anything that addresses connecting to some kind of other, some sort of other dimension through rituals and the use of symbols and runes and things like that, and successfully connecting to another entity. And that those kinds of things always rate high with me. And then, of course, there's the homage to films from the 80s that I grew up watching, such as Halloween 2, The Thing, Hellraiser, like all that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of sentimental value to this film. And I just also enjoy all the Astron 6 stuff, too, as well. So... that was why I dug it, and I've watched it several times. And it's one of my favorite movies the last 10 years.
Because it's so high on your list, I think I'll rewatch it. For all the reasons you said, I enjoy all those things too, which is why the movie felt like so disappointing to me. Like for me, it just felt like an imitation of a movie, like checking off, hey, isn't this cool? Practical effects, this is cool. it just, yeah, something about it rubbed me the wrong way. But like I said, it's been years since I've seen it, and I'll give it another chance.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I saw it in the theater. There's like a Nighthawk.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, there's a Nighthawk Cinema out here in Brooklyn, and it was a midnight show, and we had food, and we were sitting down, and it was just like the whole experience was like perfect. It was like one of these things. Like I planned to go see it like that night. It was good. And I think, that might not be that might be a lot of why this is so high on my list too.
I think a theater going experience, or just like seeing a movie in a certain context, can add a lot to your enjoyment of it. Like the first times I saw Maniac and the girl walks home alone at night.
Yeah.
It's like really, really like 4 a.m. Like it's one of those things where I woke up and couldn't get back to sleep and put on a movie and just, it set the tone. Like I feel like both of those movies take place in like the weird hours of the night, because I'm up at those hours of the night, and just even recently seeing VFW in a packed house with, the cast and the crew there and everyone's laughing and cheering, like it definitely adds to the experience of the movie. I definitely recommend you see VFW in a theater at a full screening if that's even, I think it is going to get a limited release, and I'm sure it will play in New York.
Yeah, I got to check that out for sure, man. Definitely.
Yeah, it's great. I'll give The Void another shot here. I'll rent that on iTunes.
Yeah, let me know what you think if there changes at all your opinion. But yeah.
Yeah, my opinion can be swayed by money usually. But,
by money.
Yeah, I'm taking bribes already. All right, well, my number 2 is from 2018. This movie is, again, big gap between audience and critics. I think that's going to be the case with all this guy's movies. Ari Aster, Hereditary.
Cool.
I mean, this movie really got under my skin, especially the last 20 minutes or so. And even the first 30 minutes, you think someone's the main character, and then they're taken out of the movie rather graphically. And it was such an unexpected moment. Again, this is a debut. I don't know if I've ever seen this strong of a debut. I mean, it feels like this guy's been making films forever, and I'm sure he's made shorts and stuff like that. But to come out the gate like this was, it's a statement for sure. This also came with a lot of hype, and it did not let me down. I feel like this might be like the new version of The Exorcist when people talk about what the more disturbing or scary film they've ever seen. This one, I think, is always going to come to people's minds. It has a great performance by Toni Collette. It just goes to show how the Academy really doesn't respect horror. I thought she was a shoo-in for Academy Award nomination of that year. Again, it deals with heavy themes of grief and dysfunctional family, which seems to be a common thread in Ari Aster's movies. I know Midsommar deals with grief and loss and breaking up, and Midsommar is actually another film I considered for this list, but I maybe it's just too new, or maybe when I compared it to Hereditary, it's just not as good. Hereditary goes places you don't expect at all. That movie's completely unpredictable first time through. Whereas a Midsommar kind of hits the beats you think it's going to hit. Not to say it's a bad movie. I love that movie. But Hereditary is a masterpiece. I can't find anything wrong with it.
I initially I had Hereditary in my top 10, but I think I dislike Midsommar so much that my dislike for Midsommar dragged Hereditary out of the top 10, like undeservedly, honestly. But it's a great movie. I really liked it the first time I saw it. I did watch it multiple times, and I probably should. It should be in here, I believe, for me too.
I mean, yeah, that kid, that creepy daughter, she's great. I'm sort of baffled you hated Midsummer that much. Wow.
Yeah, you know what it is. I feel like both characters had a similar trajectory in you know, in both movies, and it's like in some ways, and you know, I mean, this is my opinion. I think that the writing was kind of lazy in Midsummer, and because they basically just took the same sort of character trajectory in both films and pasted it into two different settings, and that's why I think I dislike Midsummer so much.
Wow, God, that's one that really stuck with me too. I found the ending very disturbing. You know, these people are in this codependent relationship, and one ended up in the end better than the other for sure.
Yeah. It was cool. They looked like Midsummer looked great. There was like a pretty cool use of like runes and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I didn't care for it really.
I hear you. But this is one for the books. I think this is a classic. I guess general audiences didn't really seem to like it. Again, I think people expect to see a horror movie, like, you know, those Conjuring movies came and did their thing, but now it is the movie that like is the new horror movie thrill ride, and that got people interested in horror again. And then they see something like this, and it's mature, it has heavy themes, and it's kind of a bum out.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, it's not a feel good movie.
No. Hell no.
Yeah, but it's great.
Some of the common things though between like Hereditary and Black Coat's Daughter are films that just are great films aside from the genre, I think, you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like they'll be around for a while, and I think they'll continue to find, you know, an audience. And again, with streaming, like if something just ends up on Netflix and you're scrolling through one night, you want to watch something scary, you know, you read this and that, it'll find people. Although, oddly enough, Midsummer and Black Coat's Daughter, those are movies I recommend a lot. A lot of people, they're both polarizing movies. I don't know why Black Coat's Daughter is, but Midsummer I can see being more polarizing. Like after I saw with a group of people and talked about it with my coworkers afterwards, and split 50-50. Like some people loved it, some people hated it. To each their own, I guess.
I think that leaves us to the number ones.
Number one. It all comes down to this.
Yeah. This one, most people won't even consider it a horror film. But
oh, interesting.
My number one is The Joker by Todd Phillips, which came out last year. And he...
oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. I think it works as a horror film. It works as...
I totally agree.
It works as a gritty crime drama akin to Taxi Driver, and it works as
that comparison's been made.
Yeah, and it works as a commentary on our culture. So it's like a quintessential film, and it also pissed a lot of people off. It created quite a bit of controversy, and all those stuff.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think this movie became so controversial before anyone even saw it?
Okay, I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and I think that the environment that we live in, all of this virtue signaling bullshit that goes on, where it's more about the vibe today with a lot of people, especially those who engage on Twitter and write blogs, is it's almost like this inversion of letting your actions display what kind of character you have. Instead of actually trying to do something good, to something productive that adds to the general positivity of life, people choose irresponsibly to tell the world how much they hate something in the attempt to elevate how people perceive them. They'll say, oh, I hate this because it does this, this, and this. So look at how good of a person I am, how on the right side of history I am, how woke I am. And I think that's like the reason why people hate the Joker, because there's a lot of strong themes in here. You know what I mean? A lot of, you know, darker subject matter. The main character is a mentally disturbed person and all that stuff. So that's oh yeah, I have to show everyone what a good person I am. I have to disagree with this movie. I have to say I hate it. All blah blah blah, all that stuff. And that's why people are fucking weak-willed and are eventually going to be crushed under the heel of like whatever the new regime is going to be. You know what I mean? No one has any fucking balls to really say what they like. So they have to talk about what they dislike, and I fucking hate that.
Yeah, I saw this in the theater, and I listened to a few, different podcast reviews of it, and I was really kind of surprised by the reaction. It got a mostly positive reaction from critics, but it almost seems like you said, people don't want to be seen as liking something that is perceived as uncool.
Yeah,
I can see if you genuinely didn't like the movie. Of course, taste is subjective, but there was this campaign. It seemed like to be like this isn't cool, and if you like it, you're not cool. And
yeah, or if you like it, you're right wing, fucking Trump supporter or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which I don't get any of that from the movie. No. For me, it was just a really well done, elevated comic book film. I mean, there's still some very comic booky elements to it, which didn't bother me, and it's incredibly well shot and well made. It being a Todd Phillips film is even more kind of surprising. I mean, he's mostly kind of known for doing, funny sort of movies, something, not to be taken as seriously.
Yeah.
Like he did a film called War Dogs that was about arms dealers, and it still kind of had a little bit of a humorous tone to it.
Yep.
But this is completely in a new direction, and I honestly didn't have a lot of expectations for the Joker, and so I was really surprised at how well made it was, how well it flowed. Not surprised that Joaquin Phoenix is great, and he's great in everything.
Joaquin Phoenix is
really
badass, man. I love him.
But I am really surprised at the huge negative backlash and how this film became politicized. It was very, very baffling to me, but it definitely connected with an audience and made $1 billion fucking dollars. And I really hope, as great as this is, they don't do another one.
Yeah, I agree.
This was just about the origin of the most famous comic book villain ever. And it did it in a cool way. And everything's about trilogies and franchises now. And I think that's the wrong way to go with Joker. I really liked it. I saw it twice, once in the theater and once at home. It kind of didn't. After I saw it, I was like, "This is one of the best movies of the year." Then I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
And upon a second viewing, it was definitely in my top 10. There's just too much that's good about it, and
I think it's going to be something. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No. Interesting choice. I wasn't expecting that.
I think that people are going to look at this movie 10 years from now, and it's going to be like similar to Taxi Driver and Cruising and all those films. It's going to be one of those controversial movies that people are going to look back on and realize how important it was to cinema in general, to filmmaking, I think.
Yeah, well, only time will tell. It is certainly one of the better movies in that genre that's, way oversaturated. And yeah, this was unexpected. This is a really interesting movie all around. I'll be revisiting it again, this year for sure. My number one is also, some people debate whether it's a horror movie or not. I think it definitely is. It's not talked about or held in the esteem I think it deserves. It's probably my favorite horror movie of the last 20 years. It's from 2012, Ben Wheatley's Kill List.
Ah, yes.
This hits all the things I love, all the things I find scary. Cults, the occult, and playing a larger part in something and you have no idea. That idea to me has always scared me, like the Wicker Man, which is the greatest horror movie of all time, I think. That's that premise, Midsummer, that stuff really disturbs me. And this movie, hits all those notes, and it's perfectly It's just so well made. This looks like it could have been shot and put out in like, you know, the late 70s. Also, the idea of like an unhinged hitman becoming more and more unhinged as the film goes on. I mean, it's just so well done. I love the way there's a sense of unease from the very beginning of the movie, and Ben Wheatley just keeps ramping it up as it goes along until it just hits that like real downer, disturbing ending, and then it's just immediately over.
The ending was so fucking intense, man. I love the ending of that film.
Me too, man. I mean, talk about fucking. You knew something horrible was going to happen, but you weren't exactly sure what. Like, I thought it would have more of a traditional sort of occult sacrifice sort of ending, and that is definitely not the case. It'd be one of those I wouldn't even know I was watching necessarily like a horror movie had I not seen it compared to other, you know, occult thrillers and such. But you just feel like something's so wrong, and yeah, like I said, he just keeps ramping that up. Ben Wheatley's a really interesting director. He doesn't seem to want to do the same thing in the same genre. He seems to, you know, he made his horror movie. He's made he recently made a movie called Free Fire that I really liked. It kind of went under the radar. It's sort of an action, sort of a comedy. But he's great. He's an interesting director, and I think he's made the best horror movie of the last 20 years. It confuses me why more people haven't seen it, or people kind of shrug it off. I really enjoyed this one. That's another one. I'm like, you haven't seen Kill List? We're watching it. You know, I've seen it multiple times with many different people. And yeah, I love it. I hope Ben Wheatley makes another horror film at some point, because he's really fucking good at it.
Yeah, I dug it, and like you're saying, it has, for most of the film, it has this kind of crime drama like vibe to it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then it slowly reveals itself. You know, and that's what I really dug about the movie as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that ending I thought about for days. It's really unsettling stuff. Well, we did it.
Well, that's it, man. Top 10. You know, you want to run through some of the runner-ups we got?
Yeah, sure. I mean, God, again, any of these could have been number 11 for me. And you cover actually most of my honorable mentions. The only ones you didn't was a film from 2018, a French movie called The Night Eats the World.
Oh, I saw that. That was really good. I dug that one. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. It was, you know, just when you think, you know, zombies, like, I mean, at this point, I'm fucking sick of them. The Walking Dead kind of killed it for me.
Yeah.
Do not like that show. This was cool. Like, it was, you know, a one-man show, not a lot of dialogue. Even though, like, it's in France, everyone's speaking English, but, you know, whatever. I can overlook that. And it's really about this guy, like, feeling really lonely and bored and slowly unraveling. And it's really good. It's not particularly scary or anything like that, but it's just a really good, well told story.
Yeah, it's very moody. Very moody.
Yeah, and the guy's good. Again, the movie's on his shoulders, and he does a great job. And you really, I think, could identify with, like, if that was you, how lonely and fucking depressed you'd be. And the other thing we didn't talk about was 2014 directing duo Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, Spring.
I have one of their films, another film of theirs on my runner-up list, but yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, I really just wanted to put their films in general. Like, this could have been Resolution as well. I really like that movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Endless, not as much, but I still think it's a good flick, worth checking out. Spring is really cool. Like, it's horror sort of love story, you know, and hits some of those notes. It has the kind of like a Lovecrafty, you know, vibe to it with the creature. But again, like, you think you're just kind of watching like a movie about this dude who just lost someone and he's, you know, backpacking around, and kind of turns halfway through the movie.
Yeah,
And,
Spring.
yeah,
I enjoyed that, man. That's because
yeah, it's a good one.
Like you were mentioning about how it's like this guy who's kind of down and out in his hometown, and
Yeah.
a lot of times I know I've experienced these moments in my life where you just realize it's time to leave. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's time for me to get the fuck out of here before something bad happens, and then you peace out for a few years, and that's what I liked about the movie, actually.
Sure. Yeah. The good movie. Oh, something else. The Canal.
I don't know that.
Also from. It's something I caught on Netflix a few years back. I don't think it was ever like a top 10 contender. I didn't even write down any fucking notes for it because I didn't think I'd even mention it.
Nah, it's all right.
It's a murder mystery, a supernatural murder sort of mystery, Irish horror film. It's really well made. Like, you could see it easily being a bad movie, but this is just like a well-made version of a generic horror movie, if that makes any sense. Like, kind of has like the waterlogged, ghosty girl, that was so popular after the Japanese horror movies started coming out. The girl with like the long, stringy hair, and it kind of has moments like that. But it's really effective. I enjoyed it, and I think it was at least worth mentioning that the movie called Canal exists.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I saw The Devil, Korean horror film. All about revenge and how it corrupts your soul and eventually destroys everything around you. I thought that would make my top 10, but after rewatching it recently, as good as it is, the movie just is unfocused and flies off the rails in certain parts of the movie that it just veers wildly into a different movie. Like, I think a tighter version of that would be better. And it has such heavy themes that, like, it's kind of foreign to humor. Like, it doesn't work for that movie, or for me anyway. Another Korean film called The Wailing, I just rewatched recently too. It's again, way too long, but really interesting. A story about a village under attack by a supernatural force. It's worth mentioning. I think it's worth seeing, but I didn't love it. But there's something about it that made it interesting and worth a watch. So, but none of those last three I mentioned were, top 10 material. They were just horror movies I enjoyed watching, but had some problems with. What about you?
For me, Hereditary would have probably been in my top 10, like I said, but I'm going to give that a mention for sure.
Oh, yeah.
What was actually in my top 10 was a film called John Dies at the End from 2012. And that's a Don Coscarelli film.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Phantasm guy, right?
Yeah, he did Phantasm and like Bubba Hotep. And, it's like dark fantasy, like sci-fi, horror, comedy.
Yeah.
It was just like a really cool movie. It was based on a novel by David Wong. There's actually two novels in the series. And it's just really a cool, interesting, like fun movie that I've watched like several times.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that one as well. I like God, what's that actor's name? He's Sideways. God,
Paul Giamatti. Yeah, he's in this. He's in John Dies at the End too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's always worth a watch. Yeah, that's a fun movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Good one.
There's The Ritual, which was on Netflix from 2017. That was based on a book, which is actually superior to the movie, and that's why the movie wasn't in the top 10. If they'd incorporated more of the book, I think it would have been great. Wolf Cop. Anytime you got werewolves, I'm in, and it's a Canadian werewolf film.
Wolf Cop. I haven't even heard about that. You got to talk about that a little bit.
It's like a horror comedy. And
I like a good horror comedy.
yeah, it's like it's really good. I think it's I'm pretty sure there's two actually. There's Wolf Cop and another Wolf Cop. There's two films in the series. The first one was really cool. It's about a cop who becomes a werewolf, basically. And well, there's more to it than that. There's like some intrigue involving an election to this town. There's like a cult in it. So see, there's a cult angle which you would probably appreciate. And
Sure.
As I was watching the movie, one of the things I thought was cool about it was like if you took out the comedic elements, it would still be an awesome horror film. It would be a straight up awesome horror film without the comedic elements. It would just be a great werewolf story, And that's why it's like a great movie, I think.
Sure. Werewolves were like big in the 80s. You haven't seen them much recently.
No.
You always get a vampire film.
Yeah.
Once a year, it feels like, but no werewolves. And
we gotta revisit
werewolves are
that.
fucking cool, man.
Yeah, werewolves are awesome, and there needs to be more werewolf movies. So anyway, Depraved.
What was the last good one?
Dude.
Yeah.
Depraved by 2019, Larry Fassenden, who it's like a hipster Frankenstein movie, and
Sure.
which I don't know if anyone's seen Habit, which is a hipster vampire movie that he did back in the day. And
yeah, it's his first movie, right?
Yeah, it's great. It's like just watched it.
I haven't seen that one.
Just watched it, man. It's awesome.
Oh.
It's like the takes place in New York, Lower East Side. A lot of locations are familiar to people who grew up or lived in New York or live in New York and will remember a different time when those areas were like in the 90s where it was like a totally different thing like it is now. And Fassenden stars in that film, and he's this kind of like dude. You see him, and you're like, yeah, this guy looks like he's into like Cop Shoot Cop and the Swans and stuff like that, and like this kind of Lower East Side like scumbaggy kind of dude, And
for sure,
yeah. And then Hereditary, I probably. I said that already, didn't I? Hereditary.
Yeah, we've been talking so long, you forgot.
Yeah.
Let's just do the top 10 again.
Yeah. I have the Endless in there, but I think all three of the Benson Moorhead films are worthy of a mention. I think those guys haven't quite hit their stride yet, but I look forward to anything those guys are doing.
Yeah, same. I think they have something coming out this year. And
there was another film.
I know
there's another film called Transfiguration, which is like very depressing, urban, quote unquote vampire film. And I think
I haven't even heard of this.
I think you could still find it on Netflix or Shudder or something like that. It's about this young boy who's like growing up in like a project. He's fascinated by vampire lore, and he sees himself as he's a human, but he thinks he's a vampire essentially. And
okay.
Yeah, the movie has a lot to do with depression, sacrifice, feelings of hopelessness, and it's a very powerful movie, and that's definitely worth a mention.
You know what? I've heard of that. Yeah, I have heard of that. I think I was trying to watch it, but I couldn't find it anywhere.
I think you can get it on Shudder maybe, or it's on Prime, or it was at one point on Netflix, but I'm not sure what happened to it.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. Maybe it was in my queue or something. Something about that sounded really, really familiar.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah. Speaking of Larry Fessenden, just go back to that for a second. He made a movie about a killer catfish called Beneath that I really enjoyed, and most people thought it was like made for sci-fi like junk, but I just really enjoyed it. And if you haven't seen that, check it out. I mean, it's a bunch of kids in a boat being attacked by a giant fish.
That's awesome. I got to check that out. I didn't even know about that one.
Yeah. It's strange for Larry Fessenden. His movies are usually a little bit heavier and deal with more. And this was just kind of like a simple, movie with like dumb kids being eaten by this giant fish. It's not CGI'd. It's just a good time. I mean, that's when I show to people, I'm like, you're fucking nuts. I can't believe you like this. But, sometimes you got to like some trashy shit.
I'm all about it, man.
Anything
I like
else?
a lot of stuff that's trashy, A couple other things, like maybe Green Room was cool,
Oh, yeah. I like that director. Of his 3 films that I've seen, or 4, Green Room wasn't up there for me.
Yeah, it's like it's not a top 10 for me, but it was. I enjoyed it. I've seen it a few times.
Me too. Yeah, that movie is loved. Like, people really, really like that one, and it was okay for me. Like, it seemed for something that took place in the real world, it seemed something very unrealistic to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah.
And then there was a Turkish film from 2015 called Baskin, which I really liked.
Oh man, I've never seen that. That's one that always comes up, but still haven't pulled the trigger on that one.
Definitely check it out. It's really interesting. It's like very much, I would say, influenced by Dario Argento, like in that vein.
Cool.
And then there's an Indonesian film called Satan's Slaves from 2017. That's really cool. I believe that's on Netflix. So yeah, you can check that out.
Okay, Satan's Slaves. Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. And that's it, man. That's I'm sure I forgot something, but basically those are the ones that have been like kind of stuck in my consciousness for like the last few years.
Yeah, same here. I think it's been a great decade for horror, and there is a lot of good stuff out there. And if you say there isn't, you're not looking hard enough.
Exactly, man. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was probably just as much garbage in the 80s and 90s and as there is now, like it was never like every horror movie was great, and even some of the things people look at as great, I think it's more through a nostalgic lens. Like none of those Friday the 13th movies are really any good, but you grew up with them, so they're great.
One of the things, though, I do have to go to bat for is that I still think the first Halloween is like still very watchable. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure. And I love David Gordon Green's sequel to it from last year. That's one that, got further and further down the list the more movies I started writing down. As much as I like it, it does have some deep flaws in its logic in some moments, and that's what kept it out for me.
Yeah.
But, Halloween's great. All the sequels are garbage, except for 3, which doesn't really count. Well, yeah, this was fun. You can probably tell, my first ever podcast. A little nervous.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, I've never been on a podcast before.
I feel like you've been like you seem like an old hand at it, honestly.
No, I just like to run my mouth, so this is perfect for me.
Well, it's perfect, sort of format then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was really fun. I had a lot of fun, making this list and rewatching some of it and discovering, new things in these movies. This is a lot of fun. Thanks for thinking of me to do this.
Yeah, man. And you guys out there that are still listening, thanks a lot for checking this out. And let us know, man. Let us know what you think. And man, we'll do this again sometime real soon. All right. Cheers, everybody.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Mike.
You got it.